everyone. This is Shanei Born, CJ Kuzler, and Alejandro Bratti from the Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business show. And we welcome you to the Spanglish World Network on Singo TV channel 250 and 251. So please remember to download both the Singo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. And while you download, make sure that you rate and leave a comment. The app is free, and Singo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and also on all smart TV devices 2016 forward. And we are super happy and stoked to have Bratti here from South Africa, proudly South African. And we're super happy to have you here and to hear your story. Welcome, Bratti.
Thank you, Shanei. I'm very, very glad to be here.
Awesome. So Alejandro normally takes the lead and will ask you a couple of questions, and we're just really happy to hear your story.
Great.
Yes,
Good.
Bridie. So really, we are really happy to have you here with us. I know that it's going to be amazing. So we always start this conversation like understanding who you were before you started to believe in yourself. Understanding from where are you coming, understanding, and give us all the details that you can give us, that you want to give us to understand. Like, okay, now I understand who was Bridie and how you. Then we're going to start to move to the place to, okay, tell us how you started to believe in yourself. What were the things that you started to do to help you with that and to move you to the place that you are right now and the things that you are doing. So more than happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my journey so far. So without giving too much away about my age, I'll just say a couple of years ago, starting off, before varsity even, and it's like, okay, what are you going to do? And my objective then was, just need to make a lot of money. I want a big house. I want a big car. That's what life is about. So at that stage, decided to study chartered accountancy, which I did, and that was great. And then I was lucky enough to get a bursary with one of the big four accounting firms. So, my career was set. Started there, and, one of the things that my dad always instilled in my sister and I, that you had to be the best at everything you did. So went into my career, started the journey with my objectives of making a lot of money and being the best at what I did. And that's what it was. My focus was work. That was my key thing. I wasn't interested in anything else. It was always about, what is the next promotion? What is the next step to get to that promotion? The career path was set, and I was set and on my way. So during my time, I stayed at the firm that I was with for a number of years. I was there for, probably over 13 years. During that time, it was great. Obviously learned a lot around technical experience. Started my articles doing external audit, moved to internal audit. Then I moved more into sort of the consulting space, which dealt with risk, with governance, combined assurance, environmental sustainability. So really, really set me up well in that aspect. Also then, I guess, moving along over the years was then sort of the softer side of things around leadership, around different business models, understanding people management. And I think, a big part of consulting, as you would know, is really advising other businesses. And that was across different industries. So from an experience perspective, I really was able to gain, a lot of that. I think which was
Let,
also important
let
for
me
me.
interrupt you quickly here. Just
Mm.
a question in regards of, before you continue, because we will continue with what you are saying,
No?
but when you started to talk about your dad that was telling you that you needed to be the best in all you do, how that created like something in you? It was positive, it was negative. What happened with that statement? Like how that started to create a variety and how you started to move in the world with that.
Yeah, I think, for me, it was when I looked at the best, it was what I was doing at work, right? So it wasn't necessarily looking at life holistically.
Mm,
Um, and when my complete tenure at the firm, there was, I didn't get married, I didn't have kids, I didn't do all those things, that other people do during that time. It was all about work. Um, and I thought that was, always striving to be better. And like I said, getting to that next promotion, getting to the next level, getting to the title. That's what it was about.
and tell
And
me,
that's
when you are thinking about that right now and you were not focusing in all the other areas of your life, how you were really feeling inside.
so I think that's the interesting part, right? So when you're in that space, you don't know. So
Exactly.
me at that time, I was fulfilled because every time I got, that next promotion, it was instant satisfaction. And then it
Mm,
was, okay, how do I get, to the next level? But without knowing so much, that there's so much more out there than just that. Um, so yeah, I think, but that comes later, right? With life experience.
yeah, but that's because this is good, and I really like that because, for example, in my case, I had that situation of trying to be like succeeding everything in work, and you forget about everything else in your life because you are thinking that that is the most important thing right now, and that right now start to become 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and it's the right now continue to be the same thing. It's like, so how you start to feel like, okay, how I start to live another life and not the life of a company that is not even mine, and you are
Exactly.
giving your whole life there.
Exactly. That's so true. And I mean, I like the statement that you've made that you're doing that, you think you're doing it for yourself, but you're actually doing it for another company. Um, so you become molded in terms of what they want you to be. Um, and being at the firm for so long, um, it was where I grew up. It's like fresh out of varsity. You're still so young. So everything that I was taught was how they, wanted me to be.
Mm.
Um, and you don't know anything else. You don't know anything different. So yeah, it's interesting to see how certain life events do change that, and change your perspective. And I think that's where, like I said, I was there for 13 plus years. And then I got a call from a headhunter, um, from a global broking firm. And they approached me with a position, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, what now? Like, it's a good position, but the place I'm in, like I said, this is where I've grown up. This is what I know. I was so well connected, not just locally, but globally. Um, do I take this risk? Do I
Mm.
step out of this comfort zone that I know? I mean, I know what my career path is, I know everything. Do I actually make this move? And I did, but I think that was one of the big steps in my journey so far that made me realize if you do take that risk, and it's really, really hard to make that decision sometimes, But once you do, how many other opportunities open? And when I say opportunities, it's not necessarily only, work related. It's so much more. So yeah, so I made the decision to move. It was horrible. I cried for days. My last working day was the Friday, I'll never forget, and we had all the farewell parties. And that weekend, I said to my mom, I was like, please just come stay with me for the weekend, because I know I'm going to get through the weekend. And the next week I was starting at this new job. And literally she came and I cried. Like, she sat there, I cried the whole weekend. Like, what have I done? Yeah, so then started at the new job, and walked in, and it was also an industry that I'd never worked in before. So even during the interview processes, I kept saying to them, I was like, you do realize that I've never worked in the financial services industry. Just to make sure, do you remember when I told you I've never worked in financial? And they were like, no, they're happy with that. They're happy with my other experience. So I was like, okay, fine. And anyway, started the job, and I walked into a business that I had to take care of, which was basically the risk advisory business for Africa, and had about 100 colleagues. Revenue, sorry, just get some water. Revenue of about $14 million, and not really, like I said, understanding the business. I had to quickly get up to speed. Understanding the industry, I didn't know people, so I didn't have a network to rely on. So that had to happen quickly. Walking into a team where there's absolutely no trust. This new person's coming in, we don't know her from the industry. And the financial services industry, specifically in South Africa, is very small, and everyone knows each other. So this was a completely new face. So you had to build trust. And yeah, so I walked in, and the first thing was, oh, by the way, we've got our global leader visiting us next week. Please have your strategy ready. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we can do this because we are the best at everything we do. And started looking into the business, looking into the numbers, talking to the people, and realized that this was in a horrible state. The business was not making money. There were no value propositions. The business didn't have a purpose. It had the wrong people. So it was a bit of a nightmare. And at that point, I was like, okay, what have I done? How am I going to get through this? It had to go basically through a whole change management process. Anyway, so the challenge was accepted. I'd made my decision, so it was, getting things done and making the changes, making very, very tough decisions, being very, very unpopular, but getting through it. It was an absolutely crazy time. First of all, coming in, defining a purpose for the team, but then also understanding that there was, a lot of people that we had to remove from the business, which is, tough, in order for us to reinvest, to start new businesses, to create value propositions that actually met, the market demand. So during those times, at that time, I mean, you would know, Shanei would know, and those that know South Africa, but the company is situated in Johannesburg. I was living in Pretoria, where Shanei comes from, and the traffic and commute between the two is just horrendous. So, my days were getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, traveling, getting to the office before 6, having time to actually, try to understand, the business before the day kicked off, back-to-back meetings. And then also because it was a global firm, my sort of direct bosses were based in New York. So a lot of the meetings happened later in the evening. And then, after that, you'd have dinners with clients, etc. So the evening would finish at 11, and then, the commute back. So it was absolutely crazy. And I think, you get into a space where you're so in the rut of things that you don't actually even realize what's happening around you. You're just going because it needs to get done. So yeah, I think it wasn't all that bad. Over the 3 years, I think, I was able to achieve what I wanted to. So, looking at the business, some of the key positives was the NOI CAGR growth over 3 years was 25%. We had what they call a people survey, so you touch base, with colleagues to understand where they are. And when I started, I think the number was at 47%, which was atrocious. We got that up to 89%. So overall, the change happened. And like I said, I think I achieved, what I wanted to from that. Then I think the other defining moment for me was actually meeting my husband now during this time, which I would not have if I hadn't left my previous firm, right? So once again, taking that risk into a space that's completely unknown led to something else besides work. And yes, I did meet him at work because, as I said, there was nowhere else I was going to meet this person ever with the life that I was leading. But yeah, so that happened. And then not long after that, I think coming back to my dad was the other very, very defining moment for me, was when he passed. And it was a tough time. He'd been terminally sick for quite a number of years, but the last couple of, probably say 2 years, were really, really tough. So I think, at one point, the last year, he was being admitted to hospital like every 2 weeks. And having that, plus this, really intense job that I was trying to, make all these changes and turn things around, having this worry on the side was incredibly difficult. You're sitting in the middle of the day in an exco meeting and you get a call, okay, no, your dad has to be admitted now. You need to leave to go, sign him into the hospital. And it was just like, it was crazy. It was a back and forth. And I was like, honestly, I just don't have time for this right now. And that was the feeling that I had at that stage, right? It was like an annoyance. Until the day that I was also at work. It was a crazy day. And we had an extremely important global meeting happening that evening. And I got a call at about 3, saying, listen, yeah, you need to come now. Your dad's not doing well. And I'm like, okay, another call. Like this is happening all the time. And I was like, okay, I'll be there as soon as I can. But I've got to finalize the preparation for this meeting this evening. So I need to first do this. So I took the time to first sort everything out before I left. I eventually left probably about an hour later, driving to the care center, and literally I was like probably 5 minutes away, not even, when they called me and they were like, sorry, he's passed away. And that was just like it for me. I took so long to sort of process what had happened. You know, all this time when I was so irritated and angry because he was taking this time that I didn't actually have for him. And when he needed it the most for me to be there, I missed that because once again, it was all about work. So, yeah, that was kind of like, okay, I need to reassess. And then COVID happened, right? And I think that was.
Can I ask you? I just want to ask a question. How did you pull yourself through that? Because that is a major thing, and not everyone is able to pull themselves through that. How did you manage all your thoughts and how you felt?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was probably, you know, one of the hardest things I've had to like process. Um, and maybe going back, you know, when I said when I left my first job, it was so hard making that decision. But comparing it to this, it was like I can't even compare this. And the guilt that you feel, right? Because it's real guilt, like not even just that day, but all the days before when I just didn't have the time. And, you know, it was an irritation, me driving up and down and, you know, taking you to the hospital, admitting you. And then, yeah, it was just, I mean, I remember that day, like I had this important meeting. Everything was just forgotten, right? Like work was just nowhere in my mind. And that was, I think, for about 2 weeks that I took off. It was, yeah, work was just so irrelevant, right? It was like that. What did that give me? Besides this pain that I'm feeling now, even though, you know, it was probably also my fault. But, you know, like I said, that guilt can really get to you. And like I said, then COVID happened. And I think there's a lot of people that I've heard of that during that time with COVID have really reassessed their lives, and where they are and what is my purpose. And I think, I mean, this like literally happened just after. And I think that was very much the same for me. It gave me the time to really look at things and say, but, you know, what is my actual purpose? Am I prioritizing the right things? And then also having met this person in my life, that was also beginning to change because I'd never had that, right? So it was always me. I never had anyone else to worry about, you know, family, and it was just me. And that was my thing. I was independent, did my own thing. Now all of a sudden, other person. And then I also realized how important it was not having, and, you know, well, having someone taken away from you. So yeah, it was a lot of hard thinking, and deciding what the next step was. And I think a big part of that was also going back to, well, I've already achieved my objective, where I was currently at work. And it's not to say that I never enjoyed what I did. I loved it, and there were great parts about it. But was I looking at life sort of in the right way? Also, because the business had done a turnaround and it was where it was now, and I was comfortable with it, it was stable, it was thriving, it was moving forward, was I then going to get into another comfort zone? So,
Quick,
would I then
quick
go back?
question, Brady.
Yeah,
Just to interrupt you a little bit, because I know that talking about this and this hard time that you were going through with your dad, tell me in regards of you as a person, how did you feel? I know that the guilt, you started to talk about the guilt, but did you feel like something like you were losing like part of your soul or something like that when that happened, and that started to help you to realize that you need to do some real changes and not any changes, uh, because this is tough. It's like your whole identity was your work, but suddenly you realize, yeah, there is something else that is important, and the person that showed you about work was your dad, and that's the person that is missing now. So how was that process?
no, exactly. And I think, um, like I said, you look at things differently, and for me, it becomes about your purpose, right? Um, and even in my work, a big part of where I found a lot of gratification was with people development, right? Actually sharing my experiences, seeing people develop and grow. But in my personal, I wasn't focusing on the people. I'm like, but why? Um, and something that also stood out for me was when my dad did pass, and you have all these people coming together, and my sister and I, for example, being there and being there for each other to sort of grieve and think about his life and celebrate his life. And one of the thoughts that did cross my mind was, wow, okay, so one day when I pass away, who's going to be doing that for me?
Mm,
Not the people at work.
mm.
Um, so, yeah,
And if you ask me, that is really powerful. In my case, just to change a little bit in that, but in my case, that was exactly the reason I was really looking for moving from the corporate, because I was asking if I need to leave a legacy, what is the legacy? What
yeah,
I am living in this world. And it's okay, yeah, of course, I make a lot of money doing this, and it's okay. I'm not saying that money is good or wrong, but what is the legacy that you're leaving? What is going to happen exactly the day that you die? Are you going to have like one person, just your wife and your dog, and that's it?
exactly.
And I don't even have a dog, so I am not going to have the dog. So
Exactly. No,
So,
it
Brian,
is.
how
No,
did
sorry.
you find your purpose? How did you find your purpose through all of this?
So I think during that stage when I was, like I said, sort of reassessing my life, um, and looking at, what are the things that actually make you happy? Um, where do your lie? And how do you sort of reach your full potential? And I guess when you're in that comfort zone that I've been speaking about before, you you don't reach that full potential. Um, and to reach that full potential, you need to be in a space where you're always learning, always finding different experiences and reskilling yourself. And I knew that I was able to do that once before, when I made the big shift in terms of the industries. So, yes, it's not easy, but you can do it, right? So I knew it had to be something different. Um, I think also it's sometimes about how your mind is sort of thinking about things, right? It's the perspective of things and how you're sort of portraying that to yourself. And unfortunately, when you're sort of in a rat race and you're just like going, you don't give yourself the ability to actually sit back and think about things holistically. And when I did that, literally, like my whole life was, it was almost like I was living life backwards, if that makes sense. So in sort of like a 4-year period, with these things that were changing my life and making me look at things differently, I met someone. I lost my dad. Then I moved in with someone, and just to remind you, like I was very independent, so it was not easy, right? Moved in with someone. Then his 2 kids moved in with us. Okay, big step. Then we got engaged. Then we got married, and then hot off the press now. So this is like, yeah, big news. We're pregnant now as well.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
And nobody knows, only the 100K people listening to this.
That is amazing. Congratulations, Bridie.
I just dropped the bomb there for you today.
Wow. Oh, man. That is amazing news.
Yes, I think, to my point and why I said that, just changing the way you think and you look at things, because I never in my life wanted kids, ever. It was just not a thing. And with the things changing like it did, and these big events that you have, like, changes things, right? And I think it goes back to, your question is your purpose. And I don't think it's normally just one thing. It's a number of things that sort of make you who you are. And once you know what that is, the belief in yourself just happens as well. So, yeah, a lot of change.
No, but this is really good. Go ahead, Shanei.
Yeah, so you went from a really, really corporate job into starting your own business, which is like worlds apart. Tell us a little bit about your business. How did you decide to start that business? What was the driving mechanism behind that?
Yeah, so also, I mean, a tough decision. So through that process that I went through of sort of assessing the life and, okay, well, what now? So it was definitely, I knew I wanted to do something different. So that would mean, being back in corporate, but taking on sort of another challenge. Or did I want something else? And I think, all these sort of events that were happening took me to, I need to do something else. I need to, which was very important for me, was have time, have more time and freedom for myself. And I think that was sort of the defining objective around that. So yeah, stepping away from a very stable job, making really good money, like Alejandro said, to nothing, um, and why. So I knew that if I continued where I was, I wouldn't be fulfilling sort of that need inside me. I also knew that, life is not about being safe. So you have to take risks. I'd taken a risk before and it opened up everything for me, and I needed to take another risk. And And then there's always, always more to learn and experience in life. So it had to be something very different. So to your point, Shanei, very different.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then well, firstly, I must say, when I left, I took time for myself. For me, that was very important. So I did like little things that I'd never ever done in my life before. And a stupid example was I watched a TV program in the middle of the day. Like I'd never done that before. And I was like, okay, this is just weird, watching TV in the middle of the day. Um, I was able to take my mom for lunch and not feel guilty that I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't actually be here right now because I've got all this other stuff I need to get done. And then also what was amazing for me was really having the time in preparing for the wedding and enjoying the whole preparation of it, up until the final day, where that would not have been the case if I was still in the corporate world. So, yeah, having the patience then to take the time to think about what the next thing was, think about things and dream big. And then making sure it was something that I enjoyed. So going back, I mentioned before that one of my biggest gratifications in my previous roles was really around people. Being able to see people grow. I mean, there's no better gratification for me. And even now, to this day, I still meet with, colleagues that I've worked through, from way back up until now, where we have coaching sessions, helping them. So I knew it had to do something with that. I then came across a company that was already established, which I liked. Met the owners, liked the owners. So what they did was they sold products. Okay, fine. So I liked the products, but there had to be something more, right? But what was nice was they had almost the processes and things were established. And those things can take a lot of time, right? If you're starting from scratch. So it was something that I could take and then basically reinvent into what I wanted it to be. And yeah, that's where we started. So the company is called Woven Green. And our tagline is all about intentional beauty. And I think the key word there, being intentional. Being intentional about the decisions that you make. And I think, having spoken about the journey so far that I've had, how important that really is. So what we're all about is really trying to enhance the beauty of lives, but at the same time making a difference. So either through sustainability of the earth, or creating livelihoods for people, and empowering women in doing so. So what we have is a range of products, but products that actually make an impact in some or other way. And yeah, that's where we are now and how we've, if I can say, recreated the company that was to its new vision as it stands now.
Well, it's really interesting, Bridie. You talk about something that I have a keen interest in is the triple bottom line. You talked about your early career, really pursuing the dollar, which is the profit. And most companies are, that's where they start. That's the bottom line. But then you get into the people and what does it mean? Who are your people? Who are you empowering? Who are you enabling to live holistic lives? Then you talk about planet, which is the third. I'm wondering how you make an impact in sustainability in, resources for our world so that people can continue to live off.
So, I mean, sustainability is sure, a broad word, if you want to say, and there's so many different ways that you can look at it. But maybe bringing it back to woven green specifically. So, one of the ways, as an example, is we have a clothing line. Um, and all clothing is made from 100% linen. So firstly, that's, really good for the environment, number one. But on the other side of that, from a client perspective, it is a product that lasts, right? So it's sustainable for your wardrobe, which means also that from a cost perspective, it's then inadvertently helping, those individuals from a sustainable livelihoods for their family. Um, so that's one example, like say from our product range. But so many out there, and I mean every day you pick up different ways. It's looking at your supply chain as an example, looking at your carbon emissions, and all of the raw materials that you're using in your products. Where does that come from? Is it natural? Is it things that people take into their home that aren't, intoxicated with different things from different sources that, they don't know about? So it's really focusing on sometimes those simple things, but things that actually do make a big difference at the end of the day.
Amazing.
I have a last question for you, Bratti. What would you say to women who are looking to fulfill their purpose and make an impact and have an influence in the world? Do you have any encouraging words for them?
So I think, Shanei, anyone can achieve the impossible. You just need to determine what does that impossible mean to you. And even more importantly, it's never, ever too late, right? So like I started my whole life at the end of my life, and it's great. The biggest mistake you can make is trying not to make a mistake, right? Make those mistakes because that's where you learn. Take risks, and take risks every single day, big or small. Value money and material things less, and friends, family, and health more. And lastly, remember that there are unlimited opportunities and options in life. And it's up to you to make those decisions and make them.
Thank you, Bratti.
I love them, Brady. And I will let you like the last question here. It's in regards of okay, you are coming from a corporate world when you were thinking that the only thing important is the work, and now you are in the exactly opposite side that you are trying to do everything and try to help people even to be like okay, take care about your health, your family, your husband, everything that has life is not only one thing, but it's a lot of things. So what can you say to those people that are listening to us right now, for example, that maybe they are in that process of having a lot of work and focusing on that and not seeing that there is a whole world around and that it's important for them? How you can help them because you have been there.
I think it's about taking that time out to think, um, and just observe what's happening around you. One of the things or moments that I remember very clearly is after I'd left the corporate world and I'd met up with one of my colleagues, and we were just chatting, and I stood there and we were in this lovely garden with beautiful flowers, and sort of while we were chatting and in conversation, I said to him, Peter, wow, look how beautiful those flowers. And he looked at me and he's like, really? You're looking at the flowers? He's like, wow, okay, you've changed. And it was just because I was taking the time out to just take note of things around you, and that brings you back, you know, to looking at things from a different perspective.
Mm, mm. I love that. So thank you. CJ, do you have any last comment, or Shanei, just to finish the...
No, I just want to thank you for coming on the show and being an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you all. It was lovely meeting you. And yeah, thanks, Shanei. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Brady, and thank you everyone that was listening to us. This has been, we are bringing people to help you to open the eyes to new things and the possibilities. What we saw in Brady when she was focusing only on the business at the end was her belief system, and that's why that was her world, that was her identity and everything. And you can change to that, and there are things that are going to happen. So start to think, like she's saying, start to see things around you, and you are going to start to realize that there are other things, not only the thing that you are looking at right now or the problem that you are looking at right now. So thank you, Brady. It was very inspirational. And thank you everyone that was listening to us today. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.